The first message was not a confession, it was a warning. A message sent into the quiet machinery of a city that believed it was safe, modern, controlled. It arrived like something unnatural, something that didn't belong to the world of ordinary crime reports and police bulletins. It didn't ask for attention, it demanded it, and once people read it, they never forgot it. This is the story of a man who stepped out of the shadows in Northern California during the late 1960s and then refused to return to them. A man who didn't just kill, he performed, who didn't just escape justice, he mocked it, who didn't just leave victims behind, but left behind puzzles, symbols, and words that still echo decades later. They called him the Zodiac, and the most disturbing part is not what he did. It's how little we still know about him. Because even today, after thousands of pages of investigation, after generations of detectives, after advanced forensic science, after every theory and every suspect, the identity behind the name remains unconfirmed, a ghost that learned how to speak. But before the ciphers, before the letters, before the fear spread through newspapers like ink bleeding into water, there were people, ordinary people, living their ordinary lives, on ordinary roads that suddenly became something else entirely. It begins in the late summer of 1968, a quiet stretch of road near Benicia, California, the kind of place where the world feels distant. Long roads, open silence, fields that stretch too far in every direction as if trying to escape themselves. On one evening, a young couple parked there, unaware that they were about to become the first confirmed piece of a puzzle no one knew existed yet. There were no witnesses, no warning, no chance to understand what was happening until it was already over. A vehicle approached, then another presence, and within moments the silence of the night broke. Not with noise at first, but with irreversible action. When police later arrived, they found what remained of a life interrupted mid-sentence, a story cut off before it could finish. At the time, investigators treated it as a tragic but isolated case. Violent crime existed, even in quiet towns. There was no reason yet to believe this was the beginning of something larger. But the killer was already thinking ahead, already watching, already planning, because what happened next would prove that this was not random violence. This was communication. Months passed. Then came December 1968. Another couple, another quiet location, Lake Herman Road. And again, silence turned into chaos without warning. This time, however, something changed. Because this time, there was survival. A young woman lived through the attack, injured, shaken, but alive. And that single detail transformed everything. It meant the story could now be told from inside the event. It meant fear had a witness. But more importantly, it meant the killer had made a mistake, or so they thought. Because shortly after, the police received a phone call. A man on the line admitted responsibility, not just for the most recent attack, but for the previous one as well. He didn't sound rushed. He didn't sound confused. He didn't sound afraid. He sounded composed, controlled, almost curious, as if he was observing their reaction more than participating in it. That call changed everything. Now it wasn't just a crime scene. It was a presence, a mind that wanted to be known. In the months that followed, newspapers began receiving letters, not ordinary letters. These were structured, intentional, carefully written messages sent to media outlets, demanding attention, claiming responsibility, and introducing something the public had never seen before in a criminal case at this scale: symbols, codes, encrypted messages that seemed designed not just to conceal meaning, but to challenge anyone who tried to uncover it. The letters often began with a chilling phrase, "This is the Zodiac speaking." And from that moment, the name was born, not given by investigators, not created by victims, but chosen by the killer himself. Alongside the letters came a symbol, simple but deeply unsettling, a circle with intersecting lines, a crosshair, a mark that felt less like handwriting and more like targeting, as if every word was aimed, as if every reader was already part of the game. Then came the ciphers, At first, authorities thought they were just attention-seeking nonsense. But that assumption didn't last long. One of the earliest codes, later known as the 408 cipher, was eventually solved. And what it revealed did not calm the situation, it escalated it. The decoded message contained disturbing admissions, framed not with guilt, but with satisfaction. A statement that made one thing clear. The person behind these crimes did not see himself as trapped, hunted, or remorseful. He saw himself as something else entirely. A performer, a storyteller, someone writing meaning into violence. And while investigators worked to understand him, the public reaction shifted into something more dangerous than fear. Obsession. Because the Zodiac wasn't hiding in silence. He was communicating. He was responding. He was watching the reaction to his own existence unfold in real time. And that made him far more powerful than an unknown attacker in the dark. It made him an idea. By 1969, the pattern had changed again. More letters, more threats, more ciphers sent to newspapers, demanding publication, demanding attention, demanding participation. The media became an unwilling partner in the game. Every publication of a letter gave the killer exactly what he wanted: reach, influence, psychological control over an entire region. People stopped seeing headlines as news. They started reading them like warnings. Then came the attack at Lake Berryessa. Different setting, different approach, more direct, more personal. A method that felt less like opportunity and more like intention. And yet again, the killer disappeared. No clear identity, no arrest, no closure. Just a growing sense that the boundaries of the case were expanding beyond anything law enforcement could contain. Because now the Zodiac wasn't just a man committing crimes. He was a system, a pattern, a voice that could appear anywhere and vanish just as quickly. And then came perhaps the most unsettling truth of all. Even after all the communication, all the messages, all the attention, no one actually knew who he was, not with certainty. Suspects came and went. Investigations expanded and collapsed. One name kept returning again and again in discussions: Arthur Lee Allen. But even that thread never produced final proof strong enough to close the case. And as time moved forward, something even stranger happened. The Zodiac didn't fully stop. Or at least, people believed he didn't. Because when a case remains unsolved long enough, it stops belonging to history. It becomes mythology. And mythology doesn't end. It evolves.